Standing. face the altar?
We'll do bows. You can bow in place if that's more comfortable.
Now just a bow. Sit facing this direction. And prepare for chanting. Does anyone need a chanting sheet? We'll chant the Gatha on opening the Dharma. On opening the Dharma, incomparably profound and minutely subtle, is rarely encountered, even in hundreds of thousands of millions of ages. We now can see it, hear it, receive and maintain it. May we completely realize the Tathagata's true meaning. The Dharma, incomparably profound and minutely subtle, is rarely encountered, even in hundreds of thousands of millions of ages. We now can see it, hear it, receive and maintain it. May we completely realize the Tathagata's true meaning. The Dharma, incomparably profound and minutely subtle, is rarely encountered, even in hundreds of thousands of millions of ages. We now can see it, hear it, receive and maintain it. May we completely realize the Tathagata's true meaning.
So a quick sound check. Are you able to hear? Okay. Welcome everyone to this Dharma talk of our February Zazenkai, Day of Zen. Welcome in the Zendo, welcome online, a special welcome to Florida Sambo Zen, being there together in your Zendo. Just one here. When I turned to prepare this talk for today, I still sort of reveling in the workshop that Natalie Goldberg did for us here last Sunday, writing practice, writing in Zen. And in the course of that, she quoted a little passage from Jack Kerouac. And I just jotted down a few of the little directives that she shared. Be submissive to everything. Open listening. Write in recollection and amazement for yourself. Accept loss forever. Write bottomless from the bottom of your mind. What if this is addressed to us in our practice? The theme for our practice at Mountain Cloud in this first quarter of the year is beginner's mind. We've been hearing again and again various quotes from Shunryu Suzuki, and this is one that includes actually my favorite line from his book. In the beginner's mind, there is no thought, I have attained something. When we have no thought of achievement, no thought of self, we are true beginners. Then we can really learn something. So, again, when you're a beginner, there's just this kind of free absorption, free of calculation, no expectation, no measure, nothing to live up to. We forget ourselves. Suzuki Roshi goes on, this is the line. The beginner's mind is the mind of compassion. When our mind is compassionate, it is boundless. Some powerful cues for practice. Boundless by nature. Call it mind, call it one, call it now. This very moment. No edge, no border, no place to divide it, and nothing outside it. So we can rest in this. And it's a very lively rest. I came across an anecdote recently from a group of interreligious dialogue activists who were traveling in Tibet. They're staying at a hotel near Mount Everest. But because of the different names given by the Chinese, the Tibetans, and the Nepalese to the area, they weren't quite sure where they were. The leader among them asked the Chinese clerk, "Where are we? Where are we?" And the clerk responded, pointing to the ground, "Here, here." But the anecdote says that didn't satisfy. So someone in the group went up to a map, must have been a map on the wall, and pointed to it. "No, where are we?" And the clerk said, "I don't know. I've never been anyplace else." So here we are, no place else. Beginner's mind. Yeah, here we are on this full moon day, 2024. The snow moon, the indigenous tribes call it, because it said February is the month that traditionally has the most snow, though this could be changing. The snow moon this year, I looked it up, and it's the farthest from the Earth in all of this rotation this year. So it will appear the smallest full moon. I find that difficult because it's been so large, but these are the stats. That full moon hanging in the sky, visible only because it reflects the light of the sun. Driving to the Zendo earlier this week, I came up the ridge on the road just outside our house. Clear blue sky, and there, hanging low, the waxing moon. Paper moon. For just a moment, no place else. Then the thought, here it comes, the full moon, Zazenkai. This moon, full and empty. There's that passage by Dogen I return to from time to time. Enlightenment is like the moon reflected on the water. The moon does not get wet, nor is the water broken. Although its light is wide and great, the moon is reflected even in a puddle an inch wide. The whole moon and the entire sky are reflected in dewdrops on the grass, or even in one drop of water. Dogen goes on, enlightenment does not divide you, just as the moon does not break the water. You can't hinder enlightenment. You cannot hinder it. Just as a drop of water does not crush the moon in the sky. The depth of the drop is the height of the moon. Each reflection, however long or short its duration, manifests the vastness of the dewdrop and realizes the limitlessness of the moonlight in the sky. So current. Dogen is a master of language, but he isn't speaking in metaphor. A drop of water, the whole moon, indivisible, exactly this deep, exactly this high, and boundless. Whatever its duration, all of it. So today, as a way of exploring the vastness that comes forth as exactly this, I'd like to turn to two women in the ancestry of Zen. One is Chiyono, the first Zen woman to receive dharma transmission in Japan. She, not absolutely sure when she was born, around 1223, and her date of death is 1298, year of death. Chiyono. The other woman is a Japanese nun a century later who meditated on Chiyono's awakening poem, and in the wake of that practice comes to her own realization. Dharma to dharma. Her name, this second woman, is Nyozen. So Chiyono, she's also known, if you start looking around, by her given name, Mugai Nyodai, one of the first abbesses of a temple, first female Zen master, Japan. Her lifespan overlapped with Dogen. Dogen is easy to remember because he's born in 1200, died in 1253. Chiyono's story is fairly well known. There's a woodblock print that depicts the moment of her awakening, the trigger, you could say. And then there are various tellings. In one strain of stories, Chiyono is a young woman of little means who finds her way to a small convent and is allowed to stay as a servant. Another account, several other accounts, she's an educated aristocrat who marries and loves, and after her husband dies, follows her heart's desire to follow the way. The later strand of this tradition includes details like cutting off her long hair and even possibly burning her face with a flat iron in order to gain entry to a monastery. Could be conflating different stories, different women into one. But there are certainly stories of women disfiguring themselves in order to gain entry, so their beauty wouldn't distract. One strain of this story is consistent. At some point in her life, Chiyono went seeking a teacher. And at every temple, she asked the question, her question, what is Zen? What is Zen? Finally, when she has found the master who would be her teacher, she asks this question and receives the answer. Zen is the heart of the one who asks, not someone else's words. So she asks, why does the teacher give sermons that are recorded? It's very current. And her master, Master Buko, responds, with a deaf person, you show that person the moon by pointing. With a blind person, you show the gate by knocking on it. And then Buko adds, when I was awakened, it was like a bird escaping a cage. So Chiyono visits repeatedly, eventually every day, each time meeting with Buko, the abbot. Finally, she shaves her head and is allowed. Buko ordains, invites her to practice with the monks. And this is where the story turns. The head monk gives Chiyono an old lacquer bucket and assigns her the task of carrying water, going to the river, fetching water, bringing it back. A long walk, twice a day, morning and evening. Good practice for a novice. Maybe also a way to keep her out of the zendo. Some people speculate. So she makes this trek with the bucket, early morning and at night. The old bucket leaks, and so Chiyono repeatedly repairs it with strips of bamboo. how familiar this may be to us, this image. Shoring up the leaks in our lives, holding together what hurts, when that holding itself is a source of suffering. Defending a sense of self, of separation, that doesn't hold up. It doesn't jive with things as they are. A self that can't be made whole until it realizes already so. There's a tradition in Zen about leaking and non-leaking Zen. Maybe a topic for another day, but it sure comes up with this image. Just basically leaking Zen is, our effort, our practice, and we can really come into stillness, to kind of samadhi. And, as long, though, as the person is really still there, and there's this sense of subject-object, this distance, unless you're really working at it, the samadhi's going to leak. Whereas non-leaking is completely unconditional, not contingent. There's just no one doing anything. What would there be to leak? Actually, the world just as it is. So Chiyono's walking and carrying water. She's practicing wholeheartedly, sitting, letting fall away anything extra. One full moon night, she goes out to get water. And somehow, on that night, she sees the moon reflected in the water, reflected in everything. The writer Sally Tisdale has a description of this scene. That night she saw the moon reflected in the water, in the stream. It burbled and broke. In her bucket, it glowed in stillness. The same moon, different moons, no moon at all. She looked around her familiar woods and saw the icy glow of moonlight shining equally on everything. The whole moon reflected in a single still drop hanging from a leaf. So Chiyono carries the water back, delivers it to the kitchen, and writes this verse. The bucket took the stream water and held it, and the reflection of the moon through the pines lodged there in purity. The next morning she goes to Buko and presents him with her poem. He approves, but tells her to go and read the Heart Sutra. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness no other than form. There is no other emptiness than this. No telling how much time passes, months or years. Chiyono keeps practicing and carrying water. One night, the calendar turning again to the full moon, she goes out to collect water. As the record goes, walking back, She glances down at the full bucket and sees the reflection of the moon in the water. Merle Kodo Boyd tells it like this: the bottom of her old bucket, held together by bamboo strips, suddenly gave way, and the reflection of the moon vanished with the water. The bucket breaks. No water, no moon. All the old stories give way. Everything dropped. She writes this verse. That radiance. With this and that, I tried to keep the bucket together, and then the bottom fell out. Where water does not collect, the moon does not dwell. So simple. Chiyono became a teacher of monks and nuns. Her poem became well known, the Dharma unfolding. And then a century later, a young woman entered a convent that was famous for providing refuge or sanctuary to women in need, a place called Tokeiji. Nyozen went there. Don't know if she was escaping or just somehow found her way. She became a nun and began her training by meditating on Chiyono's awakening verse. And then over time, it became the theme of her practice. With this and that, I tried to keep the bucket together. And then the bottom fell out. The bottom fell out. Where water does not collect, the moon does not dwell. Chiyono awakened doing samu. Wonder if Nyozen's opening, the great falling away, might have come as she was filling her bucket at Tokeiji's well. Here's her verse. The bottom fell out of the bucket of that woman of humble birth. The pale moon of dawn is caught in the rain puddles. It's said about Nyozen that she grasped the essence of Zen. So beautiful, the Chiyono. What is Zen? Here it is, just reverberating eye to eye, but also in the particularity of her own experience. These two poems could be seen as pointing to what's sometimes called two aspects of this awake world, this one world. I think most of you know the moon in Zen is a symbol of enlightenment, of radiant illumination, of fundamental nature. Here but gone. Gone but here. So in Chiyono's poem, everything is gone. Water, moon, even the reflection. Nyozen also disappears. And everything comes rushing in. the pale moon of dawn reflecting in every puddle, every drop of water, the 10,000 myriad things, each one shining. Last Thursday, Carolyn Seaburn gave our Dharma talk. Very clear and helpful. She took up case 4 in the Mumonkan or Gateless Gate, a case with just one line in the form of a question. Why does the Western barbarian have no beard? Carolyn helped us unpack this, and she invited a vivid glimpse of the empty infinite world the koan manifests. No beard. Or as the Heart Sutra puts it, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No color, sound, smell, taste, touch, thing. Nothing at all. And right here, in talking, listening, feeling the sun, logged on to a device. After her talk, Carolyn invited questions. One was particularly touching. Paraphrasing, it was something like this. What does this emptiness say about our attachments? What about love and loss and grief? If it's all empty, does that mean it's not real? I thought Carolyn gave a heartfelt response. And as it happens, I think this just came across my email stream yesterday. A little blurb from Tricycle connecting to an article, and this one was called Free from Suffering and Free to Suffer by a Colombian Zen monk, Santiago Santay Jimenez. So I'd like to share a little from this article. Realizing this emptiness is freedom from the constructs, limitations, and attachments created by our dualistic egoic minds. That's how he puts it. It is the discovery of our ever-present Buddha nature, this emptiness. And yet, this realization is not the end of the path. It is precisely this amazing creative capacity to come up with constructs that makes us human. We just fail to see their constructed nature and believe them to be absolute realities. He writes, I remember years ago, after having some experiences of insight into emptiness, I pontificated to my mom, full of certainty. I know why we suffer. It's so simple. We attach to things and people because we don't see that everything is impermanent and empty. If we realize this, there's nothing to get attached to and therefore no suffering. She then asked me, he writes, so does that mean you won't cry when I die? The article goes on. It's easy to get attached to any insight we have, especially if it's a profound one. But to be truly free, we must also let go of even our most precious realizations. We must be able to see that we have realized and attained nothing at all. Only then can we approach the moment with a truly fresh, open, always empty of essence and full of everything mind. Grief is empty of any inherent substance. And it isn't separate from anything. That's, I would say, the great solace. Empty as it is, and one, including every bit of this broken, breaking open world. Boundless compassion, right there in each tear. One more bit from Jimenez. Our Buddha nature is impersonal, empty and full, timeless and boundless, not created and not destroyed, not born and undying, free from all attachment and suffering. Our human nature is personal and limited. It is born, gets old, gets ill, gets attached, suffers, and dies. In Zen, a deeper liberation comes when we learn to appreciate both natures without preference. Something in this resounds. But even the word both isn't exact. Form is precisely emptiness. Emptiness, precisely form. When grieving, emptiness is precisely grieving. No radiance outside it. Enlightenment is like the moon reflected on the water. Although its light is wide and great, the moon is reflected even in a puddle an inch wide. The whole moon and the entire sky are reflected in dewdrops on the grass, or even in one drop of water, or one tear. So with these remarkable empty, full hearts, let's express it now, all of it, in chanting the 4 vows.